make it on their own. I think that's really a progressive move on their parts.
So there you hear the reaction, and it's mixed to the story that's shaking up the royal family as we know it, and certainly captivating much of the world. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Prince Harry and his wife Meghan, getting the green light from the Queen yesterday after the Sandringham summit to step back from their royal roles, embrace a more progressive role as they expressed a desire, and to come part-time to Canada. There are so many questions about how exactly this is going to work. So this is your chance to put them to us directly. In London, we have for you our Renee Filippone, and beside Renee, royal commentator Katie Nicholl, whom we know so well from a number of royal conversations, including the marriage of the Sussexes. Good morning, Renee. Good morning, Katie.
Morning.
Good morning.
I just want to explain to people what we're doing. Yes, we're live on CBC News Network, but we're also streaming this conversation on CBC News Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It is live, and you can join our chat to come at facebook.com/CBC News. You can leave your questions in the comment section. You can watch at youtube.com/CBC News as well, and leave your questions in the chat there. So let's get started. We're going to get to viewer questions right away because we have them stacked up already, such as the interest level in this story. But Renee, let me get to you, because that was mostly reaction from people in British Columbia, where they spent their holiday. Again, mixed to whether they might be moving to Canada, moving to BC. As you've covered this there, what's your sense of reaction in the UK? Renee.
Well, the story is really being painted in the UK media as sort of Harry and Meghan got their way. The Queen, she really didn't want them to go, but she sort of gave in to what they wanted, and they had no choice. I've seen headlines in some of the papers, saying, it's basically Meghan's way or the highway. So here we are, it looks like the Queen is saying, yes, you can get your transition period, you can move to Canada, but there still really is a lot of the blame game being played about, what is really behind this? Was this Meghan who pushed Harry out? Was this a decision between them? Was it something the royal family did? Was it something the media did to make it so inhospitable here for the couple to live? So despite the fact we're sort of getting more detail, still a lot of detail is missing when it comes to this story. This seems like it all happened very quickly and people are trying to follow the ball here. But again, we're still on that, why has this happened moment?
Well,
and here we are, what is it, 6-7 days later?
The woman beside you can probably fill in much of that detail. What is your sense? Because one of the last times we spoke, Katie, there we were in Windsor talking about this delightful, joyous wedding day and how warmly the royal family had welcomed Meghan Markle into the royal fold. What has happened, and to what do you most ascribe this change?
Well, I so remember that moment being with you, Heather. The sun was shining. I mean, it was the most magical day in Windsor. And I really feel that there was a sense of hope and optimism, a great amount of goodwill from not just the British public towards this couple as they started their married life together, but around the world. And I think it's incredibly sad how it has all come to this.
Yes.
I think, there have been some not so subtle hints, perhaps warning signs that we, the media, should have perhaps picked up on better. Perhaps the royal family should have picked up on better. I mean, I do have sympathy for the Duchess of Sussex, because marrying into the royal family is not an easy thing to do.
Right.
The British press can be tough. I think there are certainly examples of times where they haven't made it easy for them.
So blame to go around.
It feels like an early stage to be exiting. I just feel like this is such a dramatic decision. This sort of feels really end of the line time, and I think perhaps the Queen was trying to leave, or is still trying to leave, the door open. There is a sense that no one really wants this to be the end. We wish the couple well. We hope they have a wonderful time in Canada. But, we don't want this to be the end of Meghan and Harry in the United Kingdom.
In the royal family. Okay, pausing there. I've brought to bring in some viewers who are watching, who have questions. Tintin or Tintin, depending, I'm not sure English or French, but writing to us saying this. There are two parts to this question. Where will they live? And I want to begin with this, Renee, and also particularly for you, Katie, because this is really the big question you hear here in Canada. Why do Canadians have to pay for the security? We did not ask these two here. There's a real reluctance over funding. So, Renee, I don't know what you're hearing in terms of anything there where they will live, but Katie, the whole question of who will pay for this is a big one for Canadians.
Well, I'll talk a little bit about the conversation about who will pay, and we're hearing a lot of that in reaction from the Canadian people, and often that falls in line their position on this, whether or not they sort of supported the monarchy in the first place, and that will sort of show you where they sit on that. Again, as I mentioned, all of this happened so quickly, it's really unclear right now what bills the Canadian government would be picking up, why, how this will all work. We've heard from the Finance Minister, Bill Morneau, yesterday. You're saying it's early stages, we have no idea. We've heard from the Prime Minister. So when it comes to the level of cost this is going to incur on the Canadian government, it really is unclear at this moment. And I think that's all going to be part of the discussions going forward. And maybe Katie can talk to it a bit when we're talking about security. How big of an expense is this? How much does it cost?
It's very hard to put a price on it, actually, because it's the one thing that the Palace and the Met Police simply won't comment on. I mean, it might be $1 million a year. I mean, that's a figure you sort of see in the papers. We really don't know if that is incredibly accurate or not. So I think two things to say about the funding. One is we don't know what's going to happen with it. Two is it's always been a sticking point, I think, for the British public that if they're not going to be here, then why on earth should the British taxpayer be funding their round-the-clock protection? If they want to go out and be financially independent, then people here, I think, believe that should extend to their protection. But our Home Secretary, and I think a lot of people also see this point, they are the biggest royals on the planet at the moment. I mean, look at the acres of media coverage, and the idea that they won't have any protection is unthinkable because they would be targets.
I mean,
so
Canadians, I think,
understand. There's going to have to be a resolution found to this.
A resolution found. Canadians understand that when royals are here in this country on official business, Canadians pick up the tab. But this is a whole different status, and there is a question, and indeed I think a reluctance, a strong one on the part of Canadians to pay for that. So pause on that note for just a second. If you're watching us on CBC News Network, we have to just pause as we become for our financial independence. So just hold on for just a second. But if you're streaming us right now on YouTube, on Facebook, or Twitter, we're going to keep taking your questions in just a moment. So stay with us. We'll be back with more with Renee and with Katie in just a second. Oh, this is so cool. Hello, people to whom we're streaming. I didn't realize that I wasn't actually stopping. We continue on. Hello. So let's continue on with Delia's question. Delia Freeman on YouTube. This is really interesting, Katie, because you get a sense, we've talked about how it's Team Crown versus Team Megxit. Delia speaks to this very strong division. It is shameful the way this pair has taken and in return treated our queen so extremely disrespectfully. They had an extremely expensive wedding and given a beautiful home by Her Majesty, and now people feel like they're just, turning their back on. And again, it points to what Renee's been talking about with me this morning, and that is the resentment directed largely at Meghan personally. Do you get a sense, Katie, in your writing and in your speaking to people, that people think this is just the Queen is really, she's being disrespected here?
Yes, I think there is a sense that she feels disrespected. I don't actually think it's so much in what the couple are asking for. I think most people, and the Queen included, who, remember, is a very forward-thinking woman. She's lived through so much. She will understand that having slipped down to 6th in line to the throne, Harry might want a bit more independence. But I think it's how they went about it that has been so hurtful and so disappointing, to have issued that statement without letting the Queen know. Yes, I know there were embryonic stage talks going on over Christmas, but the Queen wasn't expecting that statement. And as we are seeing in the fallout, really the couple weren't ready to make that statement because so much is still not yet mapped out, and I think that could have saved a lot of face on their part. I think it could have saved the Queen a lot of hurt. But yes, there is definitely a feeling here that that the Queen has been disrespected, and really, does she deserve this? One of the things that I've certainly noticed as I've reported on the couple, and as you know, I've written a book about Harry and Meghan, is just how much the Queen personally bent the rules for them as a couple. You know, I always remember Meghan going, when she was still Meghan Markle, being invited to Sandringham for Christmas. You know, that was unthinkable years ago. That never happened for Kate Middleton.
Katie, I just have to interrupt you there.
She was a fully fledged member of the firm.
Just hold on for one moment, because Katie, as we speak, I'm just interrupting Katie as we speak online because we want to welcome you back as you're watching us on CBC News Network. So continuing questions with Renee Filippone, who's our correspondent in London, and royal commentator Katie Nicholl. And we were just talking about how some people feel and some of the questions that are coming into us as we live stream this on CBC News Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And you can join in at facebook.com/CBC News, or you can watch on youtube.com/CBC News and leave your questions in the chat there as well. We had a question from Delia about, you know, feeling like the Queen has really been wronged by the treatment of her grandson and his wife. And Katie was just saying, we were just reminiscing about how the Queen invited Meghan Markle, when she was then Meghan Markle, to family events even before they were officially, you know, married, which was unheard of at the time.
Yeah, it was, Heather, and I think, you know, the point being that the Queen has really pushed those boundaries. I think she's done a huge amount to accommodate Harry and Meghan and their wishes. And even if you look at that wedding, and, you know, we covered that together, it was such an incredible day, but it was so different to any previous royal wedding that we'd seen. And, you know, that was all signed off by the Queen. She allowed them to have the day that they wanted. She allowed them to live where they wanted. She allowed them to create their own household, to break away from Kensington Palace, to have their own team of staff. I mean, really, everything they've wanted, they have been given. So I don't think anyone can point the finger at the Queen particularly for not accommodating them. I think the difficulty has been the couple being in the spotlight, Meghan particularly struggling with this new royal role, which is not easy. But clearly behind the scenes, they have been very, very unhappy.
Renee, let me bring in a question for someone who goes by Misfit of Science, who's commenting on YouTube and watching us there, and good morning to you, talking about the mixed reaction. This person writes, "Stay in England where you belong." There is a certain sentiment about, you know, you're welcome to visit, but please don't come and live here. But interestingly, I commend you for actually wanting to work a day in your life. So that's more directed at Harry, Katie. And let me bring this one back to you. If Meghan goes back to acting or whatever she may want to do to be financially independent, what would Harry do? I mean, he's a military man. Would he be at home with Archie? Or what could you see him doing in terms of being financially independent?
Well, you know, these are all questions that we're waiting to get answers to, and it's not really very clear. I mean, I wouldn't knock Harry or Meghan, certainly for that respect, for being work shy. I mean, when you look at what they do in terms of the court circular and engagements here in a typical day, you know, they're out on engagements, they're seeing their charities, they're working with their patronages. You know, they're really busy, and you know, Meghan particularly is incredibly hardworking. But and we don't know what's happening, but if they're going to give up royal duties, or perhaps only spend several months of the year doing royal duties, what are they going to do the rest of the time? And I think that is the crux of these crisis talks, because if it's going to be about going out and being commercial and launching commercial enterprises and, for want of a better phrase, cashing in, then that's the sticky point for the palace. That's when things could get really quite murky and quite difficult.
It's interesting. I'll just do one more question, but Andre Stevens on Facebook commenting on that. If they want to be financially independent, they should be paying for the security costs. So that goes back to what we were talking about earlier.
That's what I said. That's what we said. That's what we were saying earlier.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And Sandra Persaud commenting, "Wow, nice, but who's going to pay for the security?" So obviously costs are a big issue on this point here in Canada. Yeah. I want to go back. This will be my last question. Then Renee, you're going to carry on, aren't you, with all of this live streaming with more questions. But coming back to, hold right on with me here. This is another big issue for Canadians. We had this poll, one of our newspapers, the National Post, reporting on whether Canadians would want Harry to be Governor General. And of course, in Canada, we've had Canadian-born Governor General since 1952 in Vincent Massey. There's not a big appetite in this country to go back to a British-born Governor General, I don't think. But what is the likelihood, what chance, this is Pat Lawson's question, what chance might there be for Harry to be Governor General?
It doesn't seem very likely. People say it would be sort of a step back when it comes to sovereignty for Canada. Yes, I think Harry will continue on with his position within the Commonwealth, likely making trips and representing it. I think it would be a very interesting position, or a very interesting call for the Prime Minister to make, because he's the one who recommends to the Queen who the next Governor General is, to take someone like Harry and put them in that position of power, when for so long we've had, Canadians who have these exemplary records of service within our own country, serving as that position. We are an independent, sovereign country. It's not impossible. I highly doubt, despite the fact that some people say they would support it, whether or not in the end, if it was actually to come to pass and people thought it through, whether it would be something that people would back.
He is so popular. I mean, people would like to have him role, but do you think, Katie, really, if he's wanting to step back from royal duties, would he want to be the Queen's representative in another country? As his job.
I was just about to say it wouldn't make any sense.
No.
That really would point out, we don't want to be in England anymore. I'll do the same thing. I'll just do it in Canada. And I can't see that happening.
I wish I could be listening in directly, but I have to keep working away here. I'm going to let you two continue with so many questions that are stacking up for you from people who are watching as we live stream. Renee, thank you so much. Katie, great to see you, and thank you very much as well. We'll end our conversation.
All right, so we are continuing our conversation here on social media, streaming on YouTube and Facebook, and taking a look at all these questions, all these unknowns right now when it comes to the past week and the royal news and this shock announcement by Harry and Meghan. So let's just jump right into it. Katie Nicholl is my guest. She is the royal editor for Vanity Fair. And let's just start from the beginning here. We have a question right now from Marlene Correa. She says, is it true that Harry was forced to make the announcement on social media because the tabloids had a leak? They were going to put out some sort of statement. He may have tried to contact the Queen. Is that false? Could there be any truth to that?
What we understand happened was the Sun newspaper got wind of the couple's decision to move to Canada. Apparently they had that story for about 10 days or so before they actually printed it. Then there was that very strange visit to Canada House. Renee and I were there together. We both commented, didn't we, on how unusual this was. Didn't feel like a regular engagement. And then the next morning, splash, on the front page, we're off again to Canada. By which point, the Sussexes obviously felt that they were losing control of the narrative, this story that they'd sat on for quite a long time, this idea that they were moving to Canada was suddenly out of their control. And that clearly was the catalyst for them then going nuclear, as the papers have said, and issuing that statement. What we understand they didn't do was tell the Queen and senior members of the royal family that they were issuing that statement. But this idea that the whole thing came as a complete shock to the royal family isn't quite accurate, because I was told by a very reliable and senior source at the palace that there were early stage talks. So when Meghan and Harry were in Sussex, in Canada over the Christmas holidays, they were having conversations with members of the royal family about this idea. So it's a bit of both. There were talks, but they were nowhere near as ready as they were meant to be before announcing this plan.
It was interesting. I was in Canada House. It was actually, since I've moved here, my first sort of official royal event that I covered with members of the royal family. And there were, seasoned royal correspondents there who kept asking, do you think they're going to make an announcement today while they're here about them moving to Canada? That didn't happen, but it was literally hours later. So that definitely was sort of the buzz, despite it took them.
Well, apparently after that engagement, when I actually asked a member of the Sussexes camp, is this the prequel to something bigger? And I was told no. Apparently their key aides tried to talk the couple out of pressing send on that statement, because I think they knew
it would turn out this way,
that this was going to create a huge backlash for them.
We have a couple of questions, and maybe I'll just address these as best as we can, about the ability of Meghan and Harry to work in Canada, immigration sorts of issues. As being the Queen's son, Queen's grandson, the Queen, has a right. She's not a Canadian citizen, but she has a special sort of status in the Commonwealth country that doesn't sort of work for Harry himself. It's likely if he wanted to spend a significant amount of time and get a job, he would have to apply for some sort of visa. There are different types of visas, being, an investor visa where you buy into a business. There's also the opportunity, if they're only there in and out frequently, they can be more visitor status in Canada. Meghan clearly had a visa before when she was working there. There are also talks from, sort of immigration lawyers we've heard from that say, there is an opportunity when it comes to the Minister of Immigration, special situations. Again, as we've been mentioning, all this has happened so fast.
This has not
been worked out. And we know at this point it feels like the Canadian government officials are still saying very little. It's our understanding there are conversations being had, and I'm sure those details will come about. But what kind of immigration status or visa they're going to have will depend on what exactly they intend to do while they're in Canada, and which we don't know.
Renee, I'll just jump in that there's also real tax implications.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not a tax expert or an immigration expert, but it is my understanding that if they do spend a significant chunk of the year, more than I think of 100 days in Canada, then they'll have to pay tax on their earnings in Canada as well as back here in the UK. And for Meghan, she'll also have to pay tax
in the US.
So that is for her a triple tax whammy, and for Harry a double tax whammy. And yes, they could be earning a lot of money, but they could be paying an awful lot to the tax man too.
A question coming about contributions. So what do you think, from Max Foxwell on Twitter, would they contribute to Canada?
Oh, Max, that's a really great question. I mean, wow, where to start? I suppose it depends if and how much they're going to do in terms of the Commonwealth. And I think possibly the reason they've opted for Canada over America, obviously where Meghan's mother is because Canada is a Commonwealth country. It fits well with their roles as the Commonwealth. They're not saying they don't want to carry out royal duties or work and continue that work that they started in the Commonwealth. So to me, Canada seems like a great place. What are they going to bring to it? A whole lot of attention, I suspect.
Well, it's interesting. We heard from the Premier of British Columbia yesterday. He was talking about he's kind of giddy at the idea if they do tend to settle in Vancouver Island, like where we believe they spent Christmas.
Yes.
Talking about how proud he was of people in the area to give them some space.
Keeping it stum. I mean, you Canadians keep a secret very well.
But, there does seem to be a lot of interest at this point going forward with this now becoming official. It'll be interesting for me to see if that sort of privacy level continues, how long this sort of fever around this decision will last. Do you have any sense of?
Well, I think taking a 7-week break on a private island at a billionaire's house is very different to making somewhere your home. They are the most famous people on the planet right now. This idea that they're going to be able to escape the spotlight, I don't see it happening in Canada. I don't see it happening anywhere in the world. There is so much interest on them. And, I don't know very much about Canadian media laws, but I do know a lot about British media laws. And, there is an agreement between the British media and the royal family that we leave them when they're in their private time. We don't take photographs of them on royal estates. We don't publish paparazzi pictures of the Sussexes out with Archie. And I think in Canada it might be different rules and different regulations. So they may find themselves leaving one problematic media behind, but perhaps walking into different media storm over there.
I just want to touch on a couple more things because these are big topics before we wrap up. And when you talk about the media, this question is sort of coming from a couple of people asking, why not go to America? I heard a commentator saying, and it was interesting to me, maybe a bit of a slight on Canada, that they're just staying in Canada until they can move to America. Do you think it's sort of a stepping stone? What other problems could living in America be?
I think they love Canada. I mean, I've travelled to Canada with Harry as well as with the Cambridges, and they really love Canada. That is a genuine love for a country. And Meghan spent 7 years living in Toronto. But listen, they're going to be incredibly wealthy. There's no reason why they shouldn't have a property in both countries. And I think, that subject of LA won't go away because, of course, it's where Meghan's mother is. That's the only family she's got, and she probably does want to spend more time with her mum. So I wouldn't rule out the possibility of a home in both places, especially if they're going to make as much money as people think they're going to make.
The final question comes from Stella on Twitter, and this will sort of wrap this up, saying, why is the media so judgmental, particularly of Meghan, she feels? We've been hearing this term Megxit, really placing the blame sort of squarely on Meghan. a lot of talk about, is this racist? Is this, what's behind all of this? What's your take on that, about why it seems she's had such a tough go in the media?
Listen, I think marrying into the royal family is a challenge for anyone. I know people look at Kate Middleton and make, she made it look easy. It's not easy. Kate had her challenges as well. Anyone that thinks that Meghan has been singled out above anyone else I don't agree with that. Kate had a tough time. She was called Weighty Katie for years. She's had a troublesome time in the media too. I think it's the nature of the job, and it is a job. You are under intense scrutiny. You are going to be celebrated. You are going to be criticised. You take the brickbats with the accolades. It is the way it is. It's the way it's always been.
Yeah, and I have heard the two sides saying, there is that conversation that going on though around a bit of an othering of Meghan, different from the way Katie is. I have seen some articles in BuzzFeed sort of comparing headlines. Do you see a truth in that between just the treatment of the two at all, or?
What do you think? Kate has been treated better than Meghan.
Well,
she gets an easier ride.
Yes.
Listen, Kate's been in the royal family for 10 years. I think I go back to the point I just made, which is that there was a time when she wasn't getting very favourable press. There was a time not so long ago when William was getting terrible press. Throne idol was the headline on one of the tabloids in the paper, the suggestion being that he doesn't do enough. You are going to get criticism. I think the difficulty for them has been sometimes putting themselves up on a pedestal, for example, preaching about global climate change, and then jumping on and off private jets. I mean, that's never going to sit well. I think there have been some silly decisions made along the way. I think they've surrounded themselves with brilliant advisors that they haven't always listened to. But I think there has been positive press too. And Heather and I were talking about it earlier, that celebratory mood ahead of the wedding. I don't think anyone wanted to pull her down from the start. I know Meghan feels, I'm told by sources close to her, she feels that particularly the British press were out to get her from the start. I don't think they were, but I think there have been a series of poor judgments, bad decisions that have contributed to this mess, which is frankly where we are now.
Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. Clearly, there's still so many things that need to be sorted out.
Yes, a lot.
I know that the Queen is hoping to have this done quickly. A final decision in a couple of days is what the statement said, but I have a feeling even after that point, there's still going to be more to work out.
Well, some of the most, the most incredible brains are working on this strategy, and I think the one thing that the Sussexes want to do with the royal family is make this as quick a transition as possible to seal and sort this all out. But it is complex. It hasn't been done before. So it's going to take, I think, two things: patience and compromise.
All right, so we'll end it there. I've been joined by Katie Nicholl, the royal editor with Vanity Fair, taking some of your questions today. I'm sure you have many more, and hopefully we'll be able to answer those in the days and weeks to come as we continue ourselves to get more answers about how this new role will work with Harry and Meghan. Have a great afternoon. And so they'll just be